What's up, guys, and welcome back to Jobsite Conditions right here on Deco-Crete TV. My name's Jeff, and on today's episode, we're going to show you guys how to create one-of-a-kind custom stained stamped concrete. And this is going to be a full how-to video, and we're going to go over colors, dilution, application, and cleanup. So stay tuned, and you're going to learn all about it. Buddy in the frame. So today's project is going to rate as a 3 on our DIY meter, and the product we're going to be using is this concrete acid stain from Deco-Crete. Before we get started staining though, I just want to go over a few things about acid stain here in the studio, and of course you guys can always use the timestamps to skip ahead to the exciting part if you want to. So the fact is, stamped concrete already looks amazing all on its own, and I mean, you really don't need to do anything else to it at all. But if you add some stains, man, things just really come alive. I mean, the natural color variations and the rich tones just give it that authentic stone-like look that people just can't get enough of. So here's the cool thing about acid stain. I mean, it is not just sitting on top of the concrete like paint or even water-based stain would. It actually creates a chemical reaction with the concrete itself, and the stain penetrates down into the pores. It reacts with the lime and the other minerals in the concrete and just creates a one-of-a-kind look that is really hard to duplicate with anything else. Now, I'm not saying that water-based stains can't be used for this. I mean, they do work to create the look of natural stone. In fact, there are actually way more color options. It's going to be quicker and easier to use. I mean, water-based stains just give you a lot of freedom during applications, quick dry times, and virtually no cleanup. But we have just seen way too much of this stuff peel off in the past, and when it does, it looks really, really bad, and it's a hard fix. Now, things are a little bit different on interior concrete, and water-based stains do work really well on overlays or vertical concrete. But when it comes to exterior, full-depth stamped concrete, I mean, the only way we know of creating long-lasting effects is to just use acid stain. Knowing that it'll stand up to this test of time is worth every second of all the hard work. So when it comes to the colors, I mean, acid stain is a little bit limited on the options. I mean, we have 12 different colors to choose from here, and some charts might only have 8 or 10, and they're all going to be very earthy colors that are going to have a similar feel. I mean, quite honestly, everything comes at a price. Water-based stains have practically unlimited color options, but that price is going to be longevity. Acid stains, on the other hand, they last a really, really long time, but the price is limited colors. So acid stain doesn't just last a long time, but it also goes a really long way if you're using this stuff on stamped concrete. I mean, all these colors are fairly concentrated and they're gonna need to be diluted. I mean, if you try to use these right out of the bottle, I mean, the look is gonna be really bright and overpowering. And I mean, if you're not careful, you could end up with something that looks more like a giraffe than natural stone. And I mean, if that's the look you're going for, then great. But we just like the colors to be a little bit more subtle, and that's gonna require dilution. So 1 part stain to 4 parts water is always a good starting point, but depending on what you're looking for, I mean, you might even go all the way up to 8 or even 10 parts water. So if you guys are staining a slab that you just poured, I mean, all you really gotta do is just give it about 30 days or so to cure out, thoroughly power wash it, and go to town. But if it's an older slab, just remember these 2 things. Number 1, acid stain needs to be applied to unsealed concrete. I mean, if it can't penetrate down into the pores, it will not work, bottom line. So if there is any sealer on the concrete at all, it is going to need to be removed first. And number 2, if the concrete is a little bit older, like over 15 years old, I mean, the surface will probably have lost some of its minerals and the stain might not react as well. I mean, you can usually get it to do something, but it won't be the same as newer concrete. Now, no matter how old the concrete is, acid stain does tend to react a little bit different from slab to slab, so some testing is always a good idea before you go and stain the entire area. So for today's project, we're going to be staining the slab that we poured a few months back, and we did throw sandy brown and hickory color hardener on it when we poured it and stamped it with chocolate release. So just keep in mind that the colors here might be a little bit different than if this were just plain gray concrete. Now, we'll go over all the colors of the stains when we get out to the job, but we are going to take a little bit of chocolate texture enhancer along just in case we decide to antique it after the stain. And of course, we'll finish it all up with D1 sealer. And don't worry about remembering all this stuff right now. All these products are all linked right down in the description below. So with all that out of the way, let's head out to the job site and see this stuff in action. So one of the biggest things about acid stain is, not only choosing the right color, but also choosing how you're gonna dilute it. One of the worst things you can do is just go straight to the slab and use this stuff right out of the bottle. This stuff is all really potent, and that might be okay if you were doing like a really smooth, tight troweled floor or something like that, but on stamped concrete like this, it is gonna be way too much to use it just straight out of the bottle. And when it comes to diluting it, all we need is water. Super easy, just normal water. Technically, you're supposed to use distilled water. I'll be honest, I've used water out of the tap many times. I've never had a problem with it, but technically, that is what you're supposed to do. Now, the thing that's different about today's job than it is in a lot of cases is this is not just gray concrete. When we poured this, we threw sandy brown and hickory color hardener on here. And so, this is where it's even more important to make sure that you know what you're doing. Especially with color hardeners that are light like that sandy brown, even the hickory. Those things have some white Portland cement in it, and acid stain is going to react very different to white Portland than it is gray. In fact, our color chart, everything is formulated for gray Portland cement. If you're new to this whole acid stain thing, and even if you're just pouring a gray concrete, stamp job, I would still always recommend just making yourself something like this. Doesn't take much extra concrete. Stamp it with the same stamp, put the same release on it, all that stuff. That way you got some place to play around and get your colors the way you want them before you go to the slab. And so you can see here, we got, a few different colors. In fact, I got another sample over there. I ended up making 2 of them. We're trying out some different grout here. We're gonna end up grouting this whole thing when it's said and done. So it's really, really cool to have this. And these are all sealed. But you can see that some of these colors, especially the Harvest Gold, it does want to go a little bit orange, especially, at the lower dilution rate. So we know that we're going to really dilute the Harvest Gold heavily, and we're only going to do a couple stones now. And I always take the time just to, as you're making these samples, as you're putting the stain down, just take a Sharpie and write down the color, write down the dilution, because otherwise you do this whole thing and you don't even know what you had in the beginning. So once you got everything all figured out as far as what color you want to use and how you're going to dilute them, now it's time to actually start making the stain and doing the real thing. Now, one thing that's really nice to have, this isn't required, but I do like having a little table like this set up. We just took a quick second, we got it leveled up. It gives us a nice working surface. For today's job, we're gonna mostly be using antique bronze and weathered oak. We just really like the way those 2 colors look. Now, we're gonna do a couple of them with this Harvest Gold color, but like we're looking at in the sample, this is the one that can definitely have a tendency to turn a little bit orange on us. So we're gonna dilute it plenty, and we're just gonna do a couple of these just to create, a third rock in there. A couple other things that you're gonna need is, some sort of measuring containers like this, not only to measure out the stain in the water, but also this is gonna be a nice thing to actually dip the stain out of. It's always good to have a box of gloves on hand. To apply the stain, we're just gonna use cheap chip brushes. We don't need to go out and get anything fancy. This is gonna work perfect. And always a box of rags, maybe even 2 boxes of rags. I can't stress this enough. Now, when it comes to the dilution rate, this is where some people can get a little bit confused. Some people will say 4 to 1, some people will say 1 to 4, or 1 to 6, or 6 to 1. And, technically, the way we're gonna make these, the stain is gonna be our first part. So we're gonna use 1 part stain, and then we're gonna add whatever parts water to that. For example, if we're trying to make our antique bronze at 1 to 4, there's gonna be a total of 5 parts. So the easiest way that I know to do this is just start with the stain. I'm gonna figure out what my 1 part is. So I'm gonna fill my stain up to the 8-ounce mark, and then I'm gonna end up putting 32 ounces of water into it for a total of 40 ounces. And so, I'm not trying to make this confusing or anything, but it is important that you guys get this right, because if you did your samples one way, you gotta make sure you do it the exact same way again. And we're honestly gonna make a couple different dilutions of both of these colors. That way we get even more randomness to our colors. And it's not a bad idea to go ahead and, write what color it is and what the dilution is on your mixing pail, because once you dilute these things, it's going to be really, really hard to tell the difference between the 1 to 4 and the 1 to 6. So just always write that stuff on the can. So this is the slab for today's job, and this is the desert flagstone pattern from Deco-Crete. And man, what a great canvas to do our acid stain on. This is going to look so cool when this is all said and done. It is always good to let this stuff cure out for, we recommend 1 month of cure time from pouring to staining. In this case, it's even longer. So, the stains might react a little bit different, in that couple months of cure time. So it's always good to do a little bit of testing before you just get a ton of color down. So another thing that's nice to have on a job like this is just some simple cardboard. Again, I cannot stress enough. how permanent this stain is and how much we want to eliminate not only spills, but even just drips and runs off of our container. So I got 2 pieces of cardboard here. I'm going to use one of them just to set my extra stuff on. That way it can be sitting on the slab. It's not getting dirty and dirt on it, but it is on something that's going to be protected. And then with this one, I'm just going to cut a couple little squares that I can actually set my mixing cans on, and I'm going to use those as I dip out, just in case a little bit runs off the edge. The last thing we want to do is to make a ring from the bottom of that mixing can, you know, that's going to etch in there, and it's always going to be. So when it comes to deciding which stones to make what color, how many stones we're going to actually do, well, this is where there's obviously all preference. Now, you know, certainly tried the paint by number thing before and went out through here and predetermined every stone, put little pieces of tape down, and I'll be honest, it always seemed like a lot of pre-work, and we always end up kind of throwing the plan out the window as we go along anyways. So we kind of decided that a nice way to start here is we're going to do 5 stones per block of the antique bronze, 5 stones per block of the weathered oak, and then 2 stones per block of the harvest gold. And that's a nice way to start out. Now, obviously, there's a lot of unstained bare stones here, and that's okay. You know, once we kind of get rolling here, we can always, again, stand back, look at it. There's gonna be spots where we're gonna have to fill some stuff in because it just doesn't quite look random enough. And, you know, we can stain every stone if we want, or, you know, can leave some stones be what they are. The biggest thing that I can't stress enough is just start small. It's always been a tendency, and I've ran into this over and over again, is, you know, you start that first saw block, and before you know it, you have like 90% of the stone stained. So it's best to just start slow, do a couple, and then go back and add them in as you need. Now, with this chip brush here, the big thing is that, you know, we don't want to actually just dip this thing all the way down in. If we do that, it's going to get completely saturated and it's going to be hard to get rid of. So I like to do the old Rick Lobdell technique. 1 dip halfway in and then 2 shakes off and then go straight to the stone. And once we get started, we do need to work quickly. You know, if we let this stuff dry up as we go along, we're going to end up making some lines in it. So we just want to start at one corner. We want to start, you know, working in this front edge, and then we're just going to keep pushing our pile backwards until we complete the entire stone. Obviously, again, being careful on the edges, try not to get any down in the grout line. The idea is to just keep it wet the whole time. We don't want to lose this wet edge, but once we start, we can't stop until the entire stone is done. So now that we're at this point, we know we have our, you know, 5 of each color in each different block, and we're ready to start doing some fill in. But you know, even though this stuff is still reacting, it's not done yet. If you want to get a little bit of an idea, you know, what your colors look like now that this stuff is dried up to the touch, what we can do is just take a damp rag. And again, I wouldn't do this everywhere. I would just do it on a stone or 2 just to make sure that it's looking the way you want. But if you wipe over it with a damp rag, you will get a little bit of better idea of what the final color is going to look like. So to me, that's looking pretty good. You know, we're trying to make just very subtle color differences. And again, we're gonna leave some of this just its natural color. So at this point, we're just gonna grab our a little bit heavier, our 1 to 4 weathered oak, and we're gonna go back to with the same antique bronze, and we're just gonna start filling in a couple small stones. Again, just standing back, looking at it from different directions, finding the spots you don't quite like, fill them in, and then we're gonna go call this good, let it dry up, and get on to the next step. So it's been about 2.5, 3 hours now that this stuff's been drying, and you know, that's usually pretty good. You know, it's not at a hard exact time. It needs to be down for a little while to react, right? You let it go a little bit longer, it might be darker, but we've always just kind of stuck with that, you know, 2.5, 3 hour range. And again, that's how we made these samples. So we're gonna do things exactly the same. Now, when it comes to the cleanup part, the easy answer is something like this, a good strong power washer, something that's at least 3,000 PSI. And if you have one of those, then that's pretty much all you're gonna need. This is plenty to pull off that residue. And that's part of the reason we need to wash this is acid stain does produce residue as it's reacting, and we gotta get all that off there. If we leave that behind and we skip this washing part, you are not gonna get any sealer or anything to stick to it. Now, if you don't have a power washer, or you don't have one strong enough, I mean, this could be done with a buffer and a white scrubbing pad. That will help you remove this residue as well. Or, you know, maybe, you know, a hose and a real stiff bristle brush. You know, those things will work if you don't have one of these, but this really is gonna make things go super fast for us. Now, as I'm washing this off, I mean, I'm not necessarily hitting every square inch of this concrete thoroughly with this power washer. I'm just gonna focus on the stains that are stoned.
Stains that are stoned.
Everything else, we did plenty of cleaning yesterday. So I'm really gonna just wash off all the stones that were stained, and then I'm gonna rinse down the excess. Now, as soon as we get done with the power wash, we're gonna go ahead and throw a little bit of neutralizer on this just to be safe about it. We're gonna be using NutriClean, and this stuff is made that you go 4 parts water, 1 part NutriClean. I just have it in this little pump up sprayer here. And so, you know, while the surface is still wet from the power wash, I'm just gonna spray this stuff down on the concrete. Again, I'm not even gonna worry about putting any where there wasn't any stain, because that doesn't matter. I'm only gonna go on top of the stones were stained. We're gonna let it sit there for 2 to 3 minutes, and then we're just gonna wash it right back off again. Again, I'm not worried about any scrubbing or anything like that with this NutriClean, because I know the residue's off, and I'm just doing this to make sure the reaction is stopped. Now, after you're all said and done, and you're all neutralized and you're all clean, the best thing to do is that, you know, as a very final test, while this concrete is still wet from the washing and the neutralizing, I'm just gonna take a white rag and I'm gonna just wipe across some of these stones that were stained, and I'm just gonna give it the old white rag check. As in, if this comes up with a little bit of residue on it, well, then I'm gonna keep washing until that residue is gone. But in this case, as you can see here, it's completely clean and we are good to go. As a final step before sealing, sometimes it's a good idea to do some antiquing after the staining's all done, and that's why we brought the chocolate antique with us. When you add some antiquing to this, it just kind of brings it all together, and you know, after all the washing and scrubbing and everything that happens on an acid stain job like this, you end up losing a lot of the original release powder. But even if that's not the case, sometimes you just need something to sort of bring it all together and make it look a little bit less patchy. And then obviously, if you had used liquid release to stamp the concrete, you're gonna have to do this every time. And on this job, we didn't even give it a full dose. Honestly, I put like a scoop and a half of this texture enhancer into 2 gallons of water just to give it a little bit something. All right, guys, well, here we go. We got pretty much the final product here. And you know, after we did our initial wash yesterday, we just decided that it was gonna look so much better. Even though it was all looking really cool, it was gonna look so much better if we just went ahead and stained every single stone. So we basically just kept lightening up our dilutions, and we just kept staining until they were all hit. And most of it with weathered oak. I mean, honestly, you know, we just kept lightening that up. Worked awesome for us. So I just wanted to show you guys this. And I know it looks a little bit funny right now because these grout lines are not sealed and there's not much antiquing in them because we're getting ready to start the grout of this job. But I just wanted to let you guys see this before it's grouted. That way you can see what it would look like if you didn't do that. So it turned out absolutely fantastic. Well, there you have it, folks. Our slab has now gone from regular stamped concrete to a surface with rich, natural colors that is going to last for years and years to come. Well, guys, that's pretty much it for this week's show. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to tune in and watch today's video, as well as all the other videos on Deco-Crete TV. Now, if you guys found this video helpful and you want to let us know, all you gotta do is just hit those couple little buttons down there, like, subscribe if you haven't already, share it on social media. That is completely free of charge to you, but it means the world of us. So, from everyone here at Deco-Crete TV, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.